Hello and welcome. Today, we'll step back in time to explore the legendary and fascinating origins of one of history's greatest civilizations, ancient Rome. Before Rome became the heart of an expansive empire, it began as a small settlement surrounded by myth, mystery, and rich cultural influences. From the tale of Romulus and Remus to the early kings and the rise of the Roman Republic, the founding of Rome is a story of ambition, divine destiny, and the struggle for power. Legend tells us that the foundations of Rome were laid by the sons of a god, raised by a she-wolf and destined to shape the world. Yet, beyond the legends, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of ancient settlements and influences from the Etruscans and Latins, all contributing to Rome's early growth and success. As we uncover these layers of history, we'll also explore how the geography of the Seven Hills, the early conflicts between social classes, and the formation of a unique political system helped shape a city that would one day rule the known world. So, settle in, relax, and let the whispered stories of Rome's founding take you on a journey where myth and history intertwine. The mythical origins, Romulus, Remus, and the she-wolf. The tale of Rome's founding is a story woven with myth, intrigue, and divine destiny. It begins with twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, whose legacy would shape one of the greatest civilizations in history. The legend tells us that the twins were born of Mars, the god of war, and Rhea Silvia, a Vestal virgin and daughter of the rightful king of Alba Longa, Numitor. The kingdom of Alba Longa, a significant settlement in the region of Latium, had been thrown into turmoil when Numitor's younger brother, Amulius, seized the throne through treachery. To secure his power, Amulius forced Rhea Silvia to take the vow of celibacy as a Vestal virgin, hoping this would prevent any future claimants to his ill-gotten throne. Despite Amulius' schemes, fate had other plans. Rhea Silvia's union with Mars defied Amulius' efforts, resulting in the birth of Romulus and Remus. When the twins were born, Amulius, fearing the prophecy that they would one day overthrow him, ordered that the infants be drowned in the Tiber River. However, the river itself seemed to conspire against the king's wishes. Swollen with seasonal rains, the Tiber did not fully submerge the twins' basket, which drifted gently to the riverbank near the base of the Palatine Hill. There, destiny took an extraordinary turn. A she-wolf, or Lupa, found the crying infants and took them into her den, nurturing them as if they were her own cubs. This powerful image of the she-wolf suckling the twins has endured as one of the most iconic symbols of Rome, representing the city's strength, resilience, and divine favor. Alongside the she-wolf, a woodpecker, also sacred to Mars, is said to have brought food to the twins, further emphasizing their divine protection. Eventually, the twins were discovered by a shepherd named Faustulus and his wife, Acca Laurentia, who raised them as their own, unaware of their royal lineage. As Romulus and Remus grew, they became natural leaders, known for their strength, bravery, and sense of justice. They gathered a band of followers and soon learned of their true origins. With this revelation, the twins led a revolt against Amulius, overthrew the tyrant, and restored their grandfather, Numitor, to the throne of Alba Longa. But the story of the twins did not end there. Inspired to establish a new city of their own, they returned to the site where the she-wolf had found them, on the banks of the Tiber River. Here, the twins faced a new conflict, one that would ultimately define Rome's origins. They disagree on which hill should serve as the foundation of their city. Romulus favored the Palatine Hill, while Remus preferred the Aventine Hill. This disagreement was not just about geography, it symbolized a deeper rivalry between the brothers. Seeking a divine resolution, they turned to the practice of augury, interpreting the will of the gods through the flight of birds. Remus claimed to have seen 6 vultures, while Romulus insisted he had seen 12. The omens were inconclusive, and the dispute turned violent. The exact details of what happened next vary, but in the most famous version of the story, Remus mocked the city walls that Romulus was building, leaping over them to show how easily they could be breached. In a fit of rage, Romulus struck down his brother, killing him and declaring that such would be the fate of anyone who dared to breach Rome's defenses. Thus, on April 21, 753 BCE, Romulus became the sole founder and first king of Rome, and the city was named in his honor. The day of Rome's founding, Perilia, became a sacred celebration in Roman culture, marking the birth of a city that would one day rule an empire. Romulus' rule was marked by both triumphs and challenges. He established many of Rome's first institutions, including its military and senate, and laid the foundations of its society. Recognizing the need for a larger population, he invited refugees, exiles, and outcasts from surrounding regions to join his fledgling city, fostering an early sense of diversity. To secure wives for his men, Romulus orchestrated the infamous rape of the Sabine women, a controversial episode that led to conflict but ultimately resulted in the unification of the Romans and the Sabines under his rule. Yet, beyond the grandeur of Romulus' achievements, the story of Romulus and Remus raises deeper questions about the nature of Rome's identity. The tale of 2 brothers, one of whom must die for the other to rule, symbolizes the themes of sacrifice, power, and the harsh realities of founding a new order. It is a story that reflects the values the Romans cherished: strength, resilience, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to secure their city's greatness. While the legend of Romulus and Remus captivates the imagination, it also invites us to consider how myth and history intertwine. Archaeological evidence suggests that settlements on the Palatine Hill date back to the 8th century BCE, lending some credence to the traditional date of Rome's founding. Additionally, the influence of the Etruscans and other neighboring cultures shaped early Roman society, blending reality with the mythic narrative. As we delve deeper, we'll continue to explore how these legends were not just tales but also reflections of Rome's aspirations and the values that guided its rise. From here, we move to the next part of our journey, understanding the historical foundations of early Rome and how fact diverges from myth. The founding of Rome, fact versus myth. The story of Rome's founding is a captivating blend of legend and reality, where divine intervention and heroic feats mix with historical evidence. The tale of Romulus and Remus, raised by a she-wolf and destined to build one of history's greatest cities, has been a foundational myth for centuries. However, as with many ancient civilizations, the true origins of Rome are far more complex and shrouded in mystery, requiring historians and archaeologists to sift through myth and fact to uncover what really happened. Ancient Roman historians, like Livy and Plutarch, immortalized the legendary account of Rome's origins in their writings, portraying the city's birth as a moment of destiny. According to tradition, Rome was founded in 753 BCE, a date that has been passed down through generations and celebrated in Roman culture. Yet, the origins of Rome are not just a story of divine twins and heroic kings. They are deeply rooted in the early development of settlements around the Tiber River, a fertile area that offered both strategic advantages and access to vital trade routes. Archaeological evidence reveals that the area around the Palatine Hill was indeed home to early human activity long before the legendary date of Rome's founding. Excavations have uncovered remnants of simple, thatched roof huts dating back to the 9th and 8th centuries BCE, suggesting that a small community existed there, engaged in agriculture, trade, and rudimentary forms of governance. These settlements, though modest, marked the beginnings of what would become a powerful city-state. One of the most significant influences on early Rome came from the Etruscans, a sophisticated and influential civilization that dominated much of central Italy. The Etruscans were known for their advanced engineering, religious practices, and urban planning, many aspects of which would be adopted and adapted by the Romans. The early Roman kings, such as Tarquinius Priscus and Servius Tullius, are believed to have had Etruscan roots, which highlights the deep cultural exchange between the two civilizations. The Etruscans contributed to the development of Rome's urban infrastructure, including the construction of the Cloaca Maxima, one of the world's earliest sewage systems, and the introduction of monumental architecture, such as temples and defensive walls. Moreover, the Latins, a group of tribes inhabiting the region of Latium, played a crucial role in Rome's early history. The Latins shared linguistic and cultural similarities with the Romans and engaged in alliances, conflicts, and trade. The famous Latin League, a confederation of Latin tribes, would become both ally and adversary to early Rome, influencing its military and political development. The merging of these influences, Etruscan, Latin, and even Greek, helped shape the cultural and social fabric of early Roman society. The narrative of Romulus and Remus serves as a symbolic origin story that reflects the values and ambitions of the Romans. The themes of struggle, sacrifice, and divine favor underscored the Roman belief in their unique destiny to rule and civilize. The fratricide, where Romulus kills Remus, can be interpreted as a metaphor for the harsh realities of leadership and the uncompromising nature of power. Rome was built on the idea of strength and unity, even at the cost of personal ties, a notion that would echo throughout its history as the city expanded into a vast empire. Despite the enduring power of this myth, historians recognize that the story likely evolved over time to serve Rome's political and cultural needs. During the Republican and Imperial periods, Roman leaders used these founding legends to legitimize their rule and inspire loyalty among the populace. The idea that Rome was favored by the gods and destined for greatness became a central theme in Roman identity, reinforced through literature, art, and public rituals. Monuments, such as the Lupercal, a cave said to be where the she-wolf suckled the twins, became sacred sites that connected the Roman people to their mythic past. Interestingly, the true story of Rome's founding is likely far more pragmatic. The early Romans were not mythical heroes but hardy settlers who capitalized on their strategic location. The Tiber River provided a natural defense against invasions and a crucial waterway for trade, linking Rome to the Mediterranean and facilitating the exchange of goods and ideas. The surrounding hills, such as the Palatine and Capitoline, offered natural fortifications, making the area easier to defend against rival tribes. The formation of early Roman society was also shaped by a series of alliances and conflicts with neighboring tribes. The process of state formation was gradual, marked by periods of cooperation and warfare. The Romans developed a unique system of governance, with kings who wielded considerable power but were expected to protect and expand the city's interests. Over time, the monarchy gave way to the Roman Republic, a system designed to balance power among various institutions and prevent the rise of tyranny. Rome's success as a burgeoning city-state can also be attributed to its adaptability. The Romans were skilled at absorbing the best practices of their neighbors, whether in military tactics, religious rituals, or architectural advancements. This adaptability, combined with a fierce sense of destiny and ambition, laid the groundwork for Rome's eventual transformation into a dominant force in the Mediterranean. In the end, the founding of Rome is a tale of both myth and reality, each playing a vital role in shaping the city's identity. The legends of divine twins and wolf mothers capture the imagination, but the real story is one of perseverance, strategic alliances, and cultural exchange. As we move forward, we'll explore the transition from a monarchy to a republic, a pivotal shift that would define Rome for centuries to come. Early settlements, the rise of the Seven Hills. The early history of Rome is deeply connected to the geography of the Seven Hills, a series of prominences that offered strategic advantages for the fledgling settlement. These hills, Palatine, Aventine, Capitoline, Quirinal, Viminal, Esquiline, and Caelian, would become the foundational landscape upon which the city of Rome was built. Understanding how these hills shaped Rome's development provides insight into the strategic thinking and adaptability that characterized early Roman society. Long before Rome became an empire, the Tiber River and its surrounding hills attracted settlers due to their natural resources and defensibility. The river was a crucial artery for trade and transportation, linking inland communities to the Mediterranean Sea and providing access to vital trade routes. The fertile plains around the Tiber made agriculture viable, while the nearby hills offered a natural defensive perimeter, essential for a community that had to contend with frequent threats from neighboring tribes. The Palatine Hill holds a special place in Rome's mythology and early history. According to legend, this is where Romulus established his city after the fateful confrontation with his brother Remus. Archaeological evidence supports the existence of settlements on the Palatine as early as the 9th century BCE. Excavations have uncovered remnants of simple huts made from wood and thatch, as well as primitive storage pits, suggesting a community of shepherds and farmers who lived off the land. These early settlers practiced subsistence farming, growing grains and raising livestock to sustain their families. The Capitoline Hill, another prominent rise, was equally significant, particularly as a center of religious and political life. It would later become home to the Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, one of the most important religious structures in ancient Rome. The Capitoline steep cliffs provided a natural fortress, making it a place of refuge during times of war. It was here that the early Romans would retreat to defend themselves against invaders, and it became synonymous with Rome's resilience and divine protection. The Aventine Hill has a more complex and storied history. In Roman mythology, it was associated with Remus, who chose it as the site for his settlement in opposition to Romulus Palatine. Throughout history, the Aventine became a place where the common people, or plebeians, settled. The hill became a symbol of the social divide between Rome's elite patricians and the working-class plebeians, foreshadowing the struggles between these groups that would shape the politics of the Roman Republic. The Esquiline Hill and its surrounding area developed into a bustling community, with evidence of both affluent residences and working-class neighborhoods. This hill became known for its gardens and public spaces, and it played a crucial role in connecting different parts of early Rome. The Quirinal and Viminal Hills also saw early habitation, contributing to the network of settlements that would eventually merge to form a cohesive city. The Caelian Hill was an important area as well, favored by wealthy families who built expansive homes and later became a center of religious activity. The process of unifying these individual settlements into a single, thriving community was gradual and driven by a need for cooperation and mutual defense. The early inhabitants of Rome were a mix of Latins, Sabines, and Etruscans, each contributing to the cultural and social fabric of the city. This blending of peoples led to a rich exchange of ideas, customs, and practices, which in turn laid the foundation for Rome's future identity. The Etruscans, in particular, had a profound influence on early Roman engineering, religion, and governance. They introduced advanced techniques for building roads, draining marshes, and constructing fortified walls, all of which were crucial for the city's growth. Religion played a vital role in the early settlements of the Seven Hills. The Romans believed that their city was blessed and protected by a pantheon of gods and spirits associated with the land. Sacred sites and shrines dotted the hills, each dedicated to a different deity. For example, the Temple of Vesta on the Palatine Hill was one of the earliest and most sacred places, where the eternal flame was kept burning to ensure the protection of Rome. The reverence for these religious sites fostered a sense of unity among the inhabitants, who believed that the gods had a direct hand in the city's fate. As Rome grew, the valleys between the hills became crucial areas for trade and social interaction. The most famous of these was the Roman Forum, which started as a simple marketplace but eventually developed into the political and social heart of Rome. It was here that citizens gathered to trade goods, exchange news, and engage in debates. The Forum's location, nestled between the hills, symbolized the coming together of the various tribes and communities that made up early Rome. The unification of the Seven Hills into a single urban entity was not without conflict. The different tribes and families that settled in the area often competed for resources and power. Yet, over time, a shared identity began to emerge, forged through alliances, marriages, and a common need to defend against external threats. The early kings of Rome played a crucial role in consolidating power and establishing institutions that would later be adapted by the Roman Republic. The geography of the Seven Hills gave Rome a unique advantage. The natural fortifications made the city difficult to conquer, while the fertile land supported a growing population. As Rome transitioned from a collection of hilltop settlements into a more unified city, its inhabitants developed a fierce sense of pride and resilience, traits that would define Roman culture for centuries. From these humble beginnings, Rome began its journey toward becoming a dominant power. The influence of the Etruscans, culture, and society. The story of Rome's rise from a small settlement to a powerful city-state cannot be fully understood without recognizing the significant impact of the Etruscans. The Etruscans, a sophisticated and influential civilization, occupied the region of Etruria, modern-day Tuscany, to the north of Rome. Their culture, which flourished between the 8th and 3rd centuries BCE, left an indelible mark on early Roman society, shaping everything from religion and architecture to governance and social customs. One of the most profound influences the Etruscans had on Rome was in the realm of urban planning and architecture. The early Romans learned from the Etruscans how to build permanent, durable structures. The Etruscans were masters of engineering, known for constructing roads, bridges, and impressive public buildings. They introduced the use of the arch, a revolutionary architectural feature that allowed for the construction of more extensive and stable structures. The Romans would later adopt and perfect this technique, using it to create iconic monuments like the Colosseum and the aqueducts that define their empire. The Etruscans also played a crucial role in the development of Rome's religious practices. Etruscan religion was deeply tied to interpreting the will of the gods, and they believed that divine forces governed all aspects of life. This belief was passed on to the Romans, who adopted Etruscan rituals and methods of divination, such as haruspicy, the examination of animal entrails to predict the future, and augury, interpreting the flight patterns of birds. The Etruscans also influenced the Roman pantheon, as many of Rome's gods and goddesses were borrowed or adapted from Etruscan deities. For example, the Etruscan god Tinia became Jupiter, the chief deity of Roman religion. The Etruscans' emphasis on religious ceremonies and sacred spaces can be seen in the construction of early temples in Rome. One of the most significant examples of Etruscan architectural influence is the Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus on the Capitoline Hill, which became a central religious site in the city. The design of this temple, with its steep porch and high podium, was distinctly Etruscan and set the standard for future Roman temples. The sacred rituals performed in these spaces emphasized Rome's connection to the divine and the belief that the city was favored by the gods. Social and political organization in early Rome was also shaped by Etruscan models. The Etruscans had a hierarchical society with a ruling class of nobles and a well-defined structure of authority. This influenced the early Roman monarchical system, where kings wielded significant power but were supported by a council of elders, which evolved into the Roman Senate. The concept of public authority and the division of roles between leaders and advisors were foundations laid by Etruscan governance. The Etruscans also introduced important symbols of power that became staples of Roman authority. The fasces, a bundle of rods with an axe, symbolized the power of magistrates to administer justice and enforce the law. This emblem, carried by lictors who accompanied Roman officials, would later become a significant symbol in Roman politics and governance. The Etruscan ceremonial practices, including the triumphal processions held for victorious leaders, were adopted and became a cornerstone of Roman celebratory traditions. Etruscan influence extended to the realm of art and culture. Etruscan art was known for its vivid depictions of daily life, religious rituals, and the afterlife. They excelled in bronze work, pottery, and wall paintings, many of which have been preserved in the tombs of Etruscan nobles. The Romans adopted Etruscan artistic styles, particularly in their early use of sculpture and decorative motifs. Funeral practices and beliefs about the afterlife were also shaped by Etruscan customs. The elaborate tombs found in Etruscan necropolises, such as those in Tarquinia and Cerveteri, inspired the Romans' reverence for ancestors and the development of elaborate family burial traditions. One of the most direct ways the Etruscans influenced Rome was through the rule of Etruscan kings. The last three kings of Rome, Tarquinius Priscus, Servius Tullius, and Tarquinius Superbus, were of Etruscan origin. Under their rule, Rome saw significant urban and political development. Servius Tullius is credited with implementing critical social and military reforms, including the creation of the census, which organized Roman citizens into classes based on wealth and established the framework for military service. This division not only structured Roman society but also laid the groundwork for the Republic's political institutions. The reign of Tarquinius Superbus, the last king of Rome, is often remembered for his tyranny and the eventual rebellion that led to the establishment of the Roman Republic. His oppressive rule and disregard for the traditional advisory roles of the Senate fueled discontent among the Roman elite. The story of his son, Sextus Tarquinius, and the tragic fate of Lucretia, a noblewoman whose assault sparked outrage, became a catalyst for the revolution that overthrew the monarchy. This pivotal moment marked the end of Etruscan dominance and the beginning of a new era in Roman governance. Despite the eventual expulsion of the Etruscan kings, their cultural and societal influence remained deeply embedded in Roman life. The Etruscans had provided Rome with the tools and knowledge to develop a sophisticated society, capable of monumental architecture, organized governance, and religious practices that would define Roman civilization for centuries. The blending of Etruscan and Latin elements created a unique Roman identity, one that celebrated both its mythical past and the tangible advancements that came from cultural exchange. The Kingdom of Rome, the first kings and their rule. The earliest period of Rome's history, known as the Kingdom of Rome, is a fascinating era blending legend with historical intrigue. Lasting from 753 BCE to 509 BCE, the Roman kingdom was ruled by a series of kings who laid the foundation for what would become one of history's greatest civilizations. Despite the mythic stories passed down through generations, these early rulers made tangible contributions to Rome's governance, society, and culture. The kingdom began with Romulus, the legendary founder who established the city's first institutions. He is credited with creating the Roman Senate, an advisory council of elders known as patres, representing Rome's leading families. This Senate would later become a critical institution in the Republic. Romulus also organized the first Roman legions, setting the military traditions that would be central to Rome's power. To populate the city, Romulus declared Rome a sanctuary for exiles and refugees, attracting a diverse population. However, the most controversial act of his reign was the rape of the Sabine women, an event that led to conflict but ultimately resulted in the unification of the Romans and Sabines. The second king, Numa Pompilius, focused on peace and religious development. Unlike the warrior Romulus, Numa was a wise and pious leader who established key religious institutions, such as the office of the Pontifex Maximus and the Vestal Virgins, who maintained the sacred flame of Vesta. Numa's emphasis on religion and ritual helped instill a sense of order and unity in the early Roman community. The third king, Tullus Hostilius, shifted Rome's focus back to military expansion. Known for his aggressive nature, Tullus waged war against neighboring cities, including Alba Longa. The legendary battle between the Horatiae and Curiatii triplets symbolized Rome's martial spirit. Yet, his reign ended tragically, as legend claims that Tullus' neglect of religious duties led to divine retribution, with his palace struck by lightning. Ancus Marcius, the fourth king, combined the martial and civic achievements of his predecessors. He expanded Rome's influence by founding Ostia, the city's first seaport, enhancing trade and military logistics. Ancus also constructed the Pons Sublicius, the first bridge over the Tiber River, symbolizing Rome's growing infrastructure and strategic prowess. The fifth king, Tarquinius Priscus, was an Etruscan noble who rose to power through political cunning. His reign marked significant advancements, including the construction of the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's extensive sewer system, and the establishment of the Circus Maximus for chariot racing. The influence of Etruscan culture was evident in Rome's architectural and religious practices, which Priscus integrated into Roman society. Servius Tullius, the sixth king, is celebrated for his social and political reforms. Believed to have risen from humble origins, Servius organized the Servian constitution, which classified Roman citizens based on wealth, determining military and voting responsibilities. This system structured Roman society and reinforced the connection between civic duty and military service. Servius also expanded the city's boundaries, fortifying it with the Servian wall to protect against external threats. The final king, Tarquinius Superbus, or Tarquin the Proud, epitomized tyranny and the dangers of unchecked power. His reign was characterized by authoritarian rule and disregard for the Senate's authority. His oppressive policies and the arrogance of his family sparked widespread discontent. The breaking point came with the tragic story of Lucretia, whose assault by Tarquin's son, Sextus, and subsequent suicide ignited a revolution. Lucius Junius Brutus led the uprising that overthrew the monarchy, marking the end of the Kingdom of Rome and the birth of the Roman Republic in 509 BCE. The fall of the monarchy was more than just a political shift. It reflected Rome's evolving commitment to shared governance and resistance to tyranny. The institutions and traditions established during the reign of the early kings, from religious practices to social hierarchies, provided a foundation for the Republic. The transition to a republic laid the groundwork for Rome's complex political structure, characterized by checks and balances designed to prevent the rise of another king. As we move forward, we will explore how the Republic's formation reshaped Roman governance and led to centuries of political innovation and conflict, setting the stage for Rome's eventual expansion into an empire. The transition to a republic, the overthrow of the monarchy. The transition from monarchy to a republic in ancient Rome was a watershed moment, one marked by political upheaval, social change, and a collective determination to prevent the concentration of power in a single ruler's hands ever again. The downfall of the Roman kingdom, which lasted from 753 BCE to 509 BCE, came about due to a series of events that culminated in the ousting of the last king, Tarquinius Superbus. This transition paved the way for the creation of the Roman Republic, a new system of governance based on shared power and civic responsibility. The seeds of discontent had been sown over time, as Tarquinius Superbus, also known as Tarquin the Proud, ruled with a harsh and autocratic hand. Unlike his predecessors, who at least acknowledged the role of the Senate, Tarquin bypassed traditional Roman institutions, ruling unilaterally and instilling fear among the populace. His oppressive reign was characterized by heavy taxation, forced labor, and the execution of those he perceived as threats to his authority. He relied on a network of spies and enforcers to maintain control, creating a climate of fear and mistrust. The tipping point came with the tragic story of Lucretia, a noblewoman whose fate would become a symbol of tyranny's injustice and the catalyst for revolution. According to Roman legend, Lucretia was assaulted by Sextus Tarquinius, the king's son. Humiliated and dishonored, she summoned her father and husband and, after recounting the horrific event, took her own life. Her act of defiance and the grief of her family struck a chord with the Roman people, highlighting the moral corruption and abuses of the Tarquin dynasty. Lucretia's death became a rallying cry, uniting the Roman nobles and commoners in their resolve to end the monarchy. The charge to overthrow Tarquinius Superbus was led by Lucius Junius Brutus, a relative of the king who had long harbored resentment against the monarchy. Brutus, known for his shrewdness and bravery, seized the moment to galvanize the people and orchestrate a rebellion. He publicly vowed never to allow a king to rule over Rome again, and his passionate appeal for liberty resonated widely. Gathering support from influential families and the general populace, Brutus and his allies expelled Tarquin and his family from Rome. The monarchy was abolished, and the gates of the city were closed to the deposed royal family, marking a definitive end to the era of kings. With the monarchy overthrown, Rome faced the monumental task of establishing a new form of government. The founders of the Republic were determined to create a system that would prevent any individual from holding unchecked power. Thus, they developed a complex political structure based on the principle of separation of powers. The monarchy was replaced by a system in which two consuls were elected annually. These consuls, who held executive authority, were given equal power and were expected to work collaboratively. Each consul had the ability to veto the other, ensuring that decisions could not be made unilaterally. This mechanism was designed to prevent the rise of another autocrat like Tarquin. The establishment of the Roman Senate as a powerful and influential body was another critical aspect of the Republic. Although the Senate had existed during the monarchy, its role had been largely advisory. Under the Republic, it became a central governing institution composed of Rome's most experienced and noble men who deliberated on matters of state, foreign policy, and military strategy. Senators served for life, and their influence shaped the direction of the Republic. The Senate's authority balanced the power of the consuls, creating a system of governance that relied on collective decision-making and debate. To ensure broader participation in governance, the Republic also introduced the Comitia Centuriata, an assembly of Roman citizens organized based on wealth and military class. This assembly was responsible for electing the consuls and other magistrates, passing laws, and making key decisions about war and peace. The creation of this assembly reflected the early republic's focus on military organization and the connection between civic duty and military service. Despite the new system's emphasis on shared governance, the early republic was not without its challenges. The struggle of the orders, a series of social and political conflicts between the patricians, the aristocratic elite, and the plebeians, the common citizens, soon emerged as a central issue. The plebeians, who made up the majority of the population but held little political power, demanded greater representation and safeguards against the abuses of the elite. This struggle would lead to significant reforms over time, including the creation of the tribunes of the plebs, officials elected to protect the interests of the common people and to veto decisions that threaten their rights. The overthrow of the monarchy and the establishment of the Republic marked the beginning of Rome's rise as a dominant political force. The Republic's emphasis on civic duty, military service, and shared governance laid the groundwork for a society that valued law and order. However, the seeds of future conflict were already sown, as the tension between the ruling class and the commoners foreshadowed struggles that would shape Roman history for centuries. Brutus' legacy as one of the Republic's founders was immortalized in Roman culture, and his actions were celebrated as the embodiment of Roman virtue and commitment to liberty. Yet, the Republic he helped establish was far from perfect. The balance of power between the consuls, the Senate, and the assemblies would constantly be tested, and the struggle for equality and representation would define much of the Republic's early years. The Roman Senate, the heart of the Republic. With the establishment of the Roman Republic in 509 BCE, the Senate evolved into one of the most powerful and enduring institutions in Roman governance. Unlike the monarchy, where a king held supreme power, the Republic introduced a system designed to distribute authority and prevent any single individual from dominating. The Senate, composed of Rome's elite patricians, played a crucial role in advising magistrates, shaping policy, and guiding the state's affairs. The origins of the Senate can be traced back to the era of Romulus, who is said to have formed an advisory council of elders called the Patres, or Fathers. During the Republic, this body grew in influence, with its members typically being former magistrates who brought their experience in governance and military command. Senators held their positions for life, providing a sense of continuity and stability to the Roman state. The Senate's power lay in its ability to influence the consuls, who were the Republic's chief executives. While consuls held executive authority, they were expected to consult the Senate on critical matters such as war, diplomacy, and finance. The Senate controlled the state treasury, oversaw public spending, and managed Rome's foreign relations. Although its decrees, known as Senatus Consulta, were not laws, they held significant weight and were rarely ignored. One of the Senate's primary roles was in foreign policy. As Rome expanded, the Senate managed diplomatic relations, negotiated treaties, and declared wars, making it the architect of Rome's imperial ambitions. Members of the Senate often came from families with deep military traditions, and their strategies laid the foundation for Rome's territorial conquests and alliances. This control over foreign affairs solidified the Senate's influence and positioned it as a central force in shaping Rome's destiny. Despite its power, the Senate was dominated by the patrician class, which led to significant social tensions. The exclusion of the plebeians, or common people, from political power resulted in a long struggle known as the Struggle of the Orders. This conflict, which unfolded over 2 centuries, saw plebeians fight for greater representation and legal protections. At the heart of their grievances was the Senate's monopolization of power, which excluded the majority of Rome's population from meaningful governance. The plebeian struggle led to several critical reforms. One of the earliest victories was the creation of the tribunes of the plebs, officials elected to protect plebeian interests. These tribunes had the authority to veto decisions made by the Senate and other magistrates, serving as a check on patrician power. This development marked a significant step toward a more balanced political system, though the patricians still retained substantial influence. Another milestone in this struggle was the establishment of the 12 Tables, Rome's first written code of laws, in the mid-5th century BCE. The 12 Tables provided legal transparency and reduced the potential for arbitrary judgments by patrician magistrates. This legal framework laid the foundation for Roman law and represented a major advance in the quest for equality, though the social hierarchy remained largely intact. The Senate's relationship with the plebeians continued to evolve as Rome expanded. Economic disparities and the monopolization of land by wealthy patricians exacerbated tensions, leading to periodic conflicts. The plebeians demanded access to political and economic opportunities, and their continued pressure led to incremental reforms that gradually opened the political system to a broader segment of the population. Despite these reforms, the Senate remained a bastion of aristocratic power, with wealth and lineage continuing to play critical roles in political influence. The Republic's political system, even with plebeian representation, was heavily skewed in favor of the elite. This imbalance sowed the seeds of future discord, contributing to the social and political upheavals that would mark the later years of the Republic. The Senate's authority was also evident during times of crisis, when it could appoint a dictator, a temporary magistrate granted absolute power to address emergencies. This role underscored the Senate's central place in Roman governance. Figures like Cincinnatus, who famously relinquished his dictatorial powers after resolving a crisis, became symbols of Roman virtues such as duty and selflessness. The Senate's adaptability and influence were crucial to Rome's early success, but its concentration of power among a few elite families would have lasting consequences. The growing demands of the plebeians for representation, coupled with the Senate's reluctance to relinquish authority, set the stage for the internal struggles that would define the late Republic. As Rome's territories expanded and the complexities of governance increased, the Senate's inability to manage these challenges would become increasingly evident. The tension between the Senate's authority and the rights of the people was a recurring theme in the Republic's history. As we move forward, we will examine how these conflicts shaped Rome's political evolution and paved the way for significant transformations, including the rise of influential leaders who would eventually challenge the very foundations of the Republic. The struggle of the orders, patricians versus plebeians. The early years of the Roman Republic were marked by intense social and political conflict known as the struggle of the orders. This protracted battle between the patricians, the aristocratic elite, and the plebeians, the common people, spanned nearly 2 centuries and fundamentally shaped the development of Roman governance and society. At the heart of the conflict was the plebeians' demand for equal rights and representation in a system dominated by the patrician class. When the Republic was established in 509 BCE, political power was almost entirely in the hands of the patricians. They controlled the Senate, held all significant religious and political offices, and monopolized the legal system. The plebeians, who made up the majority of the population, were largely excluded from meaningful participation in government and were often subject to the arbitrary rule of patrician magistrates. This inequality led to widespread resentment and a growing desire among the plebeians to challenge the status quo. Economic hardship exacerbated the tensions between the two classes. Many plebeians were small farmers who struggled to make a living, and frequent wars left them vulnerable to debt and land loss. If a plebeian could not repay a debt, they faced severe penalties, including imprisonment or being sold into slavery. The economic disparity between the wealthy patricians and the struggling plebeians was a constant source of friction, and it became a driving force behind the plebeians' push for reforms. The struggle of the orders began in earnest with the first secession of the plebs in 494 BCE. Facing economic oppression and a lack of political representation, the plebeians took a bold step. They withdrew from the city of Rome en masse and established a camp on the nearby Mons Sacer, Sacred Mount. This mass exodus effectively paralyzed the Roman state, as the plebeians made up a significant portion of the labor force and the military. The patricians, recognizing the severity of the crisis, were forced to negotiate. The outcome of this secession was the creation of the Tribune of the Plebs, an office established to protect plebeian interests. The tribunes had the power to veto decisions made by the Senate and other magistrates, providing the plebeians with a critical check on patrician authority. The creation of the tribunes was a significant victory for the plebeians, but it was only the beginning of their struggle. Over the following decades, the plebeians continued to demand greater political and legal rights. One of their most important achievements was the establishment of the 12 Tables in 451 to 450 BCE, Rome's first written code of laws. The 12 Tables were a response to the plebeians' grievances about the arbitrary nature of the legal system, which had previously been controlled by patrician judges. By codifying the laws, the 12 Tables provided a measure of legal transparency and protection for all citizens, regardless of class. Though the laws were still harsh and favored the elite in many ways, they represented a critical step toward a more just and equitable society. Throughout the struggle of the orders, the plebeians sought not only legal protection but also access to political power. Over time, they gained the right to hold significant public offices, including the consulship. The first plebeian consul was elected in 366 BCE, breaking the patrician monopoly on the highest office in the Republic. The plebeians also secured the passage of the Lex Hortensia in 287 BCE, which made resolutions passed by the plebeian council, Concilium Plebis, binding on all Roman citizens, including the patricians. This law effectively gave the plebeians legislative power and marked the end of the struggle of the orders, solidifying their role in the governance of Rome. The conflict between the patricians and plebeians was not just a struggle for political rights, but also a battle over economic justice. Land distribution and debt relief remained contentious issues throughout the Republic's history. The plebeians' victories did not eliminate social inequalities, but they decreed a more inclusive and flexible political system that could adapt to Rome's changing needs. The integration of plebeians into the political structure laid the foundation for the resilience and expansion of the Roman Republic. The struggle of the orders also had significant cultural and societal impacts. It led to the development of a more unified Roman identity, as the plebeians and patricians found ways to coexist and work together for the greater good of Rome. The concept of shared governance became a hallmark of the Republic, emphasizing the importance of balancing the interests of different social classes. The offices of the tribunes and the legal reforms established during this period remained integral to Roman politics, and the plebeian success in securing their rights inspired future generations to continue fighting for equality. Despite the progress made, the Republic's political system remained imperfect. Wealth and social status continued to influence power dynamics, and the Senate, dominated by the elite, retained significant authority. The tensions between the rich and the poor persisted, setting the stage for future conflicts that would challenge the Republic's stability. However, the struggle of the orders demonstrated the potential for change through persistent advocacy and negotiation, a lesson that would resonate throughout Roman history. As we move forward, we will examine the evolution of Rome's political institutions and the Republic's expansion beyond the Italian peninsula. This period of growth brought both opportunity and new challenges, as Rome's rise to power tested the strength and adaptability of its republican system. The Roman legions, building the backbone of Rome. The Roman legions formed the backbone of Rome's military dominance, providing the strength that enabled the Republic, and later, the Empire, to expand and maintain control over vast territories. These legions were more than just military forces, they were a representation of Roman discipline, innovation, and relentless ambition. The evolution and success of the legions played a crucial role in transforming Rome from a small city-state into a global power. The origins of Rome's military system date back to the Roman kingdom, but it was during the Republic that the legions developed into the organized and efficient units that defined Roman warfare. Early in the Republic, all male citizens were obligated to serve in the military, reflecting the connection between citizenship and service. Military duty was both a right and a duty, instilling a strong sense of loyalty and patriotism. The structure of the legions evolved over time, with reforms that improved their tactical flexibility and effectiveness. One of the most significant changes was introduced by Marcus Furius Camillus, a legendary general who helped Rome adapt to the challenges of warfare. In the 4th century BCE, Camillus reorganized the legions into maniples, smaller units that could move independently, giving the Roman army greater maneuverability on the battlefield. This innovation allowed the legions to better handle diverse terrains and adapt to different enemy tactics, setting them apart from less organized foes. The legion's basic structure consisted of around 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers, divided into 10 cohorts, which were further split into centuries led by centurions. These centurions, respected for their bravery and strict discipline, were crucial in maintaining order and effectiveness. Discipline was a core tenet of the Roman legions, and training was rigorous. Soldiers learned to march in formation, construct fortifications, and execute complex battlefield maneuvers. One of the most famous formations was the testudo, or tortoise, where soldiers interlocked their shields to form a protective barrier. Such tactics, combined with harsh punishments for disobedience, including decimation, executing 1 in 10 men for severe breaches, ensured a high level of discipline and unity. The legion's strict training prepared them for the brutal realities of combat, making them a formidable force. The engineering skills of the legions set them apart from other ancient armies. Roman soldiers were builders as well as fighters, constructing roads, bridges, and forts that facilitated their campaigns and helped maintain control over conquered lands. Fortified camps, or castra, were erected at the end of each day's march, providing secure bases and demonstrating the Romans' exceptional organizational abilities. The infrastructure created by the legions, including roads like the Appian Way, not only supported military efforts but also contributed to Rome's long-term economic and administrative integration of its territories. The late 2nd century BCE brought about the Marian reforms, named after Gaius Marius, a military reformer who transformed the Roman army. Marius opened military service to the landless poor, creating a standing, professional army. These soldiers were equipped by the state, standardized in training and gear, and promised land or money upon retirement. This shift from a citizen militia to a professional army made the legions even more formidable but also changed the dynamics of power in Rome. Soldiers' loyalties began to align more with their commanders, who promised them rewards rather than with the Republic itself. This development had long-lasting implications, setting the stage for figures like Julius Caesar to leverage personal armies in their quests for power. The adaptability of the legions was key to Rome's success. Roman commanders were known for studying their enemies and adopting new strategies to secure victories. During the Punic Wars, for instance, Rome had to counter the superior naval capabilities of Carthage and the brilliant strategies of Hannibal. The Romans innovated by building a navy and using the corvus, a device that turned sea battles into infantry engagements, playing to Roman strengths. This flexibility ensured that Rome could rise to challenges and turn setbacks into opportunities. Rome's logistical capabilities were another crucial element of its military dominance. The legion's ability to march long distances, build fortified camps, and remain well supplied was unparalleled. The extensive network of roads built by the legions enabled the rapid movement of troops and supplies, allowing Rome to project power efficiently and maintain control over its expanding territories. This logistical prowess meant that Roman forces could sustain lengthy campaigns, outmaneuver enemies, and maintain a presence in distant regions. The impact of the Roman legions extended beyond the battlefield. They were instruments of Romanization, spreading Roman culture, language, and infrastructure throughout the provinces. Veterans were often granted land in conquered territories, where they settled and helped integrate these regions into the Roman state. The legions also built roads, bridges, and aqueducts that improved local economies and facilitated the administration of Rome's vast empire. However, the professionalization of the legions also had its downsides. As generals like Julius Caesar and Pompey gained power, the loyalty of the legions shifted from the Republic to individual commanders. This shift contributed to the decline of the Republic and the rise of the Empire, as ambitious leaders used their armies to further personal agendas, leading to a series of civil wars. The legions, once the protectors of the Republic, became key players in the political struggles that ultimately transformed Rome's governance. Religious beliefs and practices, the gods of early Rome. Religion in early Rome was deeply interwoven with every aspect of daily life, politics, and the city's foundational myths. The Romans believed that their success as a civilization was due to their close relationship with the gods, and they were meticulous in observing rituals and ceremonies to ensure divine favor. This devotion laid the spiritual and cultural groundwork that would guide Rome for centuries. The earliest Roman religion was a blend of native Italic traditions and influences from neighboring cultures, including the Etruscans and Greeks. Roman religion was animistic in origin, meaning they believed that spirits, or noumena, inhabited everything, from rivers and trees to homes and fields. These spirits needed to be appeased through prayers, offerings, and sacrifices. As Rome grew, so did its pantheon, incorporating gods and rituals from conquered peoples, which created a rich and ever-evolving religious landscape. At the heart of Roman religious life were the major deities who presided over different aspects of human existence. Jupiter, the king of the gods, was the protector of the state and was often invoked in times of war and political decision-making. His temple on the Capitoline Hill, the Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, was one of the most significant religious sites in Rome and a symbol of Roman power. Juno, Jupiter's wife and the goddess of marriage, and Minerva, the goddess of wisdom and war, formed the Capitoline Triad, reflecting the importance of family, strategic thinking, and state protection. Religious rituals in Rome were highly structured and often conducted by priests or pontiffs who were responsible for maintaining proper relations with the divine. The Pontifex Maximus was the chief priest, a position of great influence that would later be held by figures such as Julius Caesar. The Vestal Virgins, priestesses of Vesta, goddess of the hearth, played a crucial role in Roman religion. They maintained the sacred fire in the Temple of Vesta, as the flame symbolized the eternal spirit of Rome. The Vestals were highly respected and lived under strict vows of chastity, with severe punishments for breaking their sacred duties. One of the most critical aspects of Roman religious practice was the concept of pietas, or duty to the gods, family, and the state. This sense of duty drove the Romans to perform rituals meticulously, believing that the well-being of their city depended on their adherence to religious practices. Every public and private act had a religious dimension. The auspices, or interpretation of the will of the gods through the flight of birds, were conducted before major decisions, whether it was declaring war or holding political assemblies. Augurs, the priests responsible for reading these signs, wielded significant influence, as no important state action could proceed without their approval. The Romans also had a deep respect for the Lares and Penates, household gods who protected the family and home. Daily rituals were performed at household shrines, ensuring these spirits continued to bless and safeguard the household. The family patriarch acted as the household priest, responsible for maintaining the family's religious duties. This emphasis on family and home life reflected the broader Roman values of loyalty and reverence for tradition. As Rome expanded, so did its religious practices, absorbing deities and rituals from other cultures. The Etruscans contributed significantly, particularly in the areas of divination and temple architecture. The practice of haruspicy, or reading the future by examining the entrails of sacrificed animals, was borrowed from the Etruscans and became a vital part of Roman religious ceremonies. The influence of the Greeks was also profound. Roman versions of Greek gods, such as Mars, Ares, and Venus, Aphrodite, became central figures in Roman worship. This cultural syncretism enriched Roman religion, making it diverse yet cohesive. Religious festivals were grand public celebrations that reinforced the connection between the people and the gods. Festivals like the Lupercalia, a fertility festival held in February, involve rituals to purify the city and promote health and fertility. During the Saturnalia, a festival dedicated to Saturn, social norms were temporarily upended, with slaves and masters swapping roles in a spirit of revelry. These festivals were times of feasting, games, and religious ceremonies, bringing the community together and reminding them of the gods' omnipresence in their lives. The importance of religion in state affairs was evident in the sacrosanctity of religious officials and the central role of temples in civic life. Political and religious power were deeply intertwined, with magistrates often performing religious duties and ensuring that the gods were honored. Religious oaths and vows were binding and considered sacred. Breaking them could bring divine wrath upon the oath-breaker and, by extension, the entire city. This belief system not only guided individual behavior but also influenced political and military decisions, reinforcing the idea that Rome's destiny was tied to the favor of the gods. However, as Rome expanded and encountered new cultures, religious practices evolved. The Republic's final centuries saw an influx of foreign cults, such as the worship of Isis from Egypt and Mithras, a Persian god popular among Roman soldiers. These new religions appealed to different segments of Roman society, creating a more complex spiritual landscape. While traditionalists resisted some of these changes, the adaptability of Roman religion allowed it to integrate new beliefs, ensuring that it remained relevant in an ever-changing world. The Roman Republic, the path to empire. The Roman Republic, founded in 509 BCE after the expulsion of the last king, Tarquinius Superbus, was a bold experiment in governance. It marked a significant departure from monarchical rule, establishing a complex system designed to prevent the concentration of power in a single individual. Over the next several centuries, the Republic would transform Rome from a small city-state into the dominant power of the Mediterranean. However, the very mechanisms that once secured Rome's stability would eventually sow the seeds of its transformation into an empire. At the heart of the Republic was a commitment to checks and balances, a principle that was enshrined in its institutions. The two annually elected consuls shared executive authority, each holding the power to veto the other's decisions. This ensured that no single leader could dominate. Yet, the Senate, an advisory body composed of Rome's elite, wielded considerable influence over legislation, finance, and foreign policy. While the Senate provided continuity and expertise, its dominance by the patrician class created long-standing social tensions. One of the defining struggles of the Republic was the struggle of the orders, a series of conflicts between the patricians and the plebeians. The plebeians, who comprised the majority of Rome's population, fought for equal political rights and protections under the law. Through persistent advocacy and even the occasional threat of secession, the plebeians achieved significant reforms, including the creation of the tribunes of the plebs and the codification of Roman law in the 12 Tables. By the 3rd century BCE, plebeians had gained the right to hold the consulship and other high offices, reshaping the political landscape and creating a more inclusive, albeit still unequal, society. As the Republic grew in power, it faced numerous external threats, prompting the development of a highly organized and adaptable military system. The Roman legions became the Republic's most formidable instrument of expansion, conquering vast territories and bringing immense wealth and resources back to Rome. Victories over powerful adversaries, such as the Samnites and the Greek city-states in southern Italy, solidified Rome's dominance over the Italian peninsula. Yet, the Republic's ambitions were far from satisfied. The Punic Wars against Carthage were among the most defining conflicts of the Republic. The First War, fought over control of Sicily, tested Rome's naval capabilities, forcing the Romans to innovate and establish a powerful fleet. The Second War, marked by the brilliance of Hannibal, saw Rome come perilously close to defeat. Hannibal's daring invasion of Italy and his stunning victories, such as the Battle of Cannae, shook Rome to its core. Yet, the resilience and resourcefulness of the Roman people, coupled with strategic counterattacks by generals like Scipio Africanus, ultimately secured Rome's victory. The final defeat of Carthage in the Third Punic War left Rome as the undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean, and the phrase Carthago delenda est became a testament to Rome's determination to eliminate its rivals. The expansion of the Republic brought both immense wealth and significant challenges. The influx of slaves and resources from conquered territories transformed the Roman economy and society. Wealthy patrician families acquired vast estates called latifundia, worked by slaves, which led to the decline of small farmers who could not compete. This economic shift contributed to growing social inequality, with a widening gap between the rich and the poor. The urban poor, or proletarii, crowded into Rome, dependent on the state for grain distributions and vulnerable to political manipulation. Amid these social upheavals, ambitious leaders began to exploit the Republic's institutions for personal gain. The Gracchi brothers, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, sought to address the plight of the poor through land reforms and social legislation. However, their efforts met fierce resistance from the Senate, leading to political violence and their eventual deaths. The Gracchi's legacy highlighted the deep fractures within Roman society and the lengths to which the elite would go to preserve their power. The military reforms of Gaius Marius in the late 2nd century BCE further destabilized the Republic. By recruiting landless citizens into a professional army loyal to their general rather than the state, Marius set a precedent that would have lasting consequences. The loyalty of the legions to their commanders rather than the Senate gave rise to a series of civil wars, as rival generals vied for supremacy. Lucius Cornelius Sulla, a conservative aristocrat, marched his legions on Rome and declared himself dictator, initiating a brutal reign marked by proscriptions and political purges. The Republic's final century was a time of extraordinary achievements and catastrophic conflicts. Figures like Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus formed the First Triumvirate, a political alliance that circumvented the traditional republican checks and wielded enormous power. Caesar's conquest of Gaul and his growing influence alarmed the Senate and Pompey, leading to a civil war. Caesar's victory and subsequent appointment as dictator for life marked the beginning of the end for the Republic. His assassination on the Ides of March in 44 BCE by senators who feared his growing power failed to restore the Republic. Instead, it plunged Rome into further chaos. The rise of Octavian, later known as Augustus, and his defeat of Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE marked the definitive end of the Republic. Octavian's consolidation of power and his establishment of the Principate laid the foundation for the Roman Empire. While he maintained the facade of republican institutions, true power was vested in the emperor. The transformation of the Republic into an empire was a result of internal divisions, economic disparities, and the ambitions of powerful individuals. Yet, the legacy of the Roman Republic lived on, influencing political thought and governance for millennia. The Republic's values, such as the rule of law, citizenship, and a mixed constitution, left an indelible mark on Western civilization. As we conclude this journey, we reflect on the remarkable trajectory of Rome, from a modest city on the Tiber to the heart of an empire that would shape the world. Thank you so much for joining me on this whispered journey through the fascinating history of the Roman Republic and the rise of one of the world's greatest empires. If you enjoyed this relaxing and informative exploration, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss future ASMR history adventures. Your support means the world to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts or any suggestions for future topics in the comments below. Remember, history is full of mysteries, wonders, and tales waiting to be told. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and I'll see you in our next whispered story.